Unfortunately, not here with a signing as far as breaking news, but I think that this news is big enough that, you got to pay homage to the guy who was once here, and him leaving, I think, is going to leave some room for guys to step up in a major way. But Kevin Byard signing a 1-year, $9 million deal with the New England Patriots, going back to be with his coach, Mike Vrabel, who he talked about how much he loved and how much he appreciated in his time in Tennessee playing with, going to a defense that, of course, he is familiar with, and one that, listen, you kind of knew this was coming. Like I said, once the Kobe Bryant signing happened, you thought that, okay, very similar players. Are they going to try and bring Kevin Byard back? But losing him, I think, is going to be something where you're going to need somebody to step up in a big way. And you hope that can be Kobe Bryant, right? You hope that with the money you paid him, that he brings that level of leadership. But Kevin Byard meant a lot to the Chicago Bears locker room. I do think that it tells you a lot about the coaching staff that you have in place, that it tells you a lot about the feeling around this locker room, around the team that you are currently trying to build, that you look at them and go, hey, we feel like we can survive life without Kevin Byard on this team moving forward. I think that does say a lot about where the Chicago Bears are at right now. But to me, this is one where you would have loved to find a way to bring Byard back in there. Ryan Poles had talked about, what it was going to take to get this done at the end of the year and how he wanted Kevin Byard back. But I said the one name that you had to think about in all of this was, we didn't talk to Dennis Allen. We didn't get his thoughts on where he felt like the defense needed to go with Kevin Byard as a part of the future or not. And it seems like that was not the case. Now, I don't think that this is a knock on Kevin Byard. I don't think that this is what's the right word, slight of anything that KB brought to this team. In fact, I'm doing this video because I feel like he was that impactful of a player last season. I feel like he was that impactful of a veteran to this locker room, and it probably means a lot to the team that you're willing to say, hey, we've got great coaching in place. We've got some really good leaders in place, that we can move on from an older veteran who had a great season, but you're looking at the interceptions that he had, you're looking at the takeaways that he had, and you're probably going, listen, that's just incredibly difficult to replicate 2 years in a row. He had talked about how he probably was going to be signing 1-year deals the rest of his time there. I kind of felt like this was coming with some of the money that you went out and spent in other places. Let me know how you guys feel about this move in the comments below. Do you think that this is going to be a blow to the team? Do you think this is something that this Bears defense is going to be able to overcome? Look, you're building this thing in Dennis Allen's image. There's going to be a lot that has to take place here moving forward for you to feel great about it. But I said this the other day. You've hit a lot of singles. You've hit a lot of doubles when it comes to the moves that you've made for the Bears. I don't think that there is a home run move coming. Maybe Max Crosby comes, maybe he doesn't, but I don't think that there is a home run move coming for this team moving forward. The one thing that I do look at, though, is saying going into the draft, you are going to see Dennis Allen try and shape this thing to turn those singles and doubles into runs that can be scored by hitting a home run with young, cost-controlled pieces. And realistically speaking, that just wasn't where you're at with a guy like Kevin Byard and where he was at. Not to say he was expensive, but spending almost $10 million on a 32-year-old safety, I believe he is, 32, 33, somewhere in there. It's not the kind of conversation that the Bears are looking to have right now. And I'm okay with that, because as much as we love some of these defensive pieces that were in the building, I love Kwani. I've said this multiple times. He's probably one of my favorite Bears on the team. I loved what KB brought to this team from a leadership perspective. You look at what the defensive production was last year, and outside of the takeaways, you don't see a dominant defense. And so a lot of those pieces, it makes sense for you to be moving on from. If not for the takeaways, we're having a completely different conversation about what kind of defense we had out there. Now, where I want to see these moves improve is on that defensive line. We'll see if the Bears do that via free agency or if they do that via the draft. I would assume you're probably going to be leaning more via the draft moving forward here. But with Kevin Byard out right now, safety is now a conversation for you in the draft. And we talked about Oregon's Thieneman. as somebody who makes a lot of sense here for the Chicago Bears moving forward. I think that if you're holding on to that first round pick for this year, and you're going to try and address the draft or you're going to try and address defensive line in that second round, where you're going to have some of that edge rusher depth there, where you're going to have some of those interior defensive linemen like Ali Hunter, who I was enamored by down at the combine. You can take the best safety on the board and say, hey, BPA, best player available, this is a guy that makes a lot of sense for us. Now, if he will be there, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. And pairing those two up, I think, could be very, very dangerous. But you got to get this right. Letting go a very solid veteran in the room. Again, you replaced it with some good veterans, but there's going to be a lot of new voices on that defense this year, and we'll see kind of where that leadership comes in and who's the guy that steps up on the defensive side of the ball. Again, let me know how you guys feel down in the comments below. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. As always, man, if any other news breaks Bears-wise, of course, we'll have you guys covered with all of that as well. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down, one love. Kevin Byard leaving the Chicago Bears and heading to the New England Patriots for a 1-year, $9 million deal. Big shout out to KB, and thank you for everything that you brought to the Chicago Bears. Drop a bear down in the comments for Kevin Byard as well. Bear down, one love. Peace.